Initialize sequence.
Welcome to The Baldcast, a production of John Canzano's Bald-Faced Truth.
The sun rose over Miami this morning with a lot of anticipation in the air. It'll be the Hurricanes and the Hoosiers at Hard Rock Stadium today. I've got a special edition of the Bald-Faced Truth right here on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you got friends who would be interested in this, it's a good time to shoot them a text and tell them to get over to YouTube and check out this broadcast. A lot of anticipation. That trophy right there, the College Football Playoff National Championship trophy at the center of this matchup. We'll talk Mario Cristobal. We'll talk Curt Cignetti. We'll even get into the secret sauce at Indiana and whether or not America is overvaluing the Hoosiers. Is this an opportunity for Miami and Mario Cristobal to shock the world? They've played well in this playoff, knocking off Ohio State, among others. We'll see what the Hurricanes have in store for the Hoosiers tonight at Hard Rock Stadium. My photographer, Najee Saker, is on the scene. I am on the scene in Miami. I will have you covered at johncanzano.com. Make sure that you grab a free subscription or a paid subscription. Whatever works for you works for me there. But on this special edition of the Bald-Faced Truth right now, we're going to talk about this game. We're going to talk about what it takes to get here and what it takes to win this game. It's the Hoosiers and the Hurricanes. What happens? Appreciate everybody who's tuned in to this broadcast. Look, I'm excited to see Mario Cristobal's team play. I'm excited to see whether or not the Hurricanes playing at home in Miami over my shoulder here. I'm at the media hotel. Whether the Hurricanes playing at home can drum up a little magic, right? 1984. Let's go back to 84. It was Miami playing an undefeated Nebraska team in the Orange Bowl. Big upset for the home team. Can Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes duplicate that? The scene here in Miami last night was a little bit Super Bowl-like, not quite as big as the Super Bowl, not all the corporate sponsors and all of the parties, but it was a festive scene downtown here in Miami. I walked past the Indiana Hotel after going to the media party and found that the Hoosier fans were having a nice time at the hotel. They were, sort of spilling out onto the street, and a lot of alcohol probably ingested. They're having a good time here. All of the Miami fans who, have probably didn't expect to be in this position in the national championship game in their own city. They're the 10 seed in this tournament. And in that way, it feels a little bit like, a NCAA tournament, right? Like there's a little bit of Cinderella to this Miami story, even though Mario Cristobal wants to portray his team as being physical and being violent. There's a little bit of Cinderella. There's a violent physical version of Cinderella in these Hurricanes. So I wonder who you're rooting for. I would love for you to tell me in the comment section. Give me your pick as well. Tell me what your pick and your prediction for the game is. I want to drill down, though, first on something that I wrote about a couple of days ago at johncanzano.com. Why do Oregon fans, not all of them, but why is there a stripe of Oregon fans who hate Mario Cristobal, who will root against him in this game? I don't really understand it. And I wonder if there's some confabulation going on. The idea that you reconstruct your memory based on things that may or may not be totally accurate. There's some people out there that feel as though Mario Cristobal jilted Oregon. There's some other people out there that feel like Mario Cristobal wasted Justin Herbert at Oregon and put him in a straitjacket on offense. They're not wrong. He did. He put him in cement shoes and then dropped him to the bottom of the nearest lake to Eugene. I mean, it was like that offense could have been so much more fun with Justin Herbert, right? They're not wrong about that. But there's some people who are mad at him about that. There's some people who are mad at him about his game management at Oregon. But I also look at Mario Cristobal and I think, gosh, he was a necessary step, if you're an Oregon fan, to getting Oregon's program back to where it is nationally. He sort of stabilized things after Mark Helfrich had gone sideways, right? Remember Helf and the end of that Mark Helfrich era? Started with a national championship game and ended kind of with a thud. And then Willie Taggart came in and you were swag surfing for like a blink. And then Taggart said, I'm excited about the Vegas Bowl, and then didn't coach in the Vegas Bowl. Remember how that went down? You got used as a stepping stone as Taggart took the team plane. I'll never forget this. Took the team plane, went off like he was recruiting, and then diverted the flight plan and ended up in, talking with Florida State officials, and then ended up ultimately, becoming the coach at Florida State. I think there's a little of little confusion, maybe some confabulation going on with the Taggart Cristobal eras. Because remember, Mario Cristobal was an assistant coach on Willie Taggart's staff. Oregon was reeling after Taggart left. Cristobal wanted the job badly. No one else was going to hire him as a head coach. He needed to get back somewhere and win, and Oregon is a really good job. And Cristobal campaigned and lobbied hard for the job, and Rob Mullins, the AD at Oregon, handed him the keys because he really didn't have any other choice. Cristobal stayed 4 seasons. I never viewed him as a forever guy. He was always going back to his alma mater at some point if they called his name, and they called his name after 4 seasons in a Rose Bowl. And I down deep look at Oregon and go, gosh, there's sort of a season for all things when it comes to coaches. I think Cristobal sort of brought Oregon to a position where they were finally, feet back underneath him. He had sort of stabilized things. But I don't think that the ceiling for Mario Cristobal was very much higher than where he had taken them to a Rose Bowl and a Fiesta Bowl. And, it was there was a limit to what he was going to do there. And I think the departure of Cristobal opened the doors for Oregon to kind of, accelerate into the NIL transfer portal era in a way that they wouldn't have under Cristobal. And so I'm confused a little bit with the Oregon fans, and maybe you can tell me differently in the comment section, who are just mad at Cristobal and they want him to lose this game. And he betrayed Oregon. And I look back and I go, did you really want him? Did you really want the poor game management and the suffocation of the offense? You wanted more of that? If you wanted more of that, bless you for it. But I think it kind of worked for both parties. In it's a kind of a relationship where it was symbiotic in some ways, where Cristobal got to sort of prove to Miami that he could be a head coach and win games on a big level. And then Oregon kind of got stabilized and then got to figure out what it wanted to be moving forward. Dan Lanning becomes the hire, but I would argue that Willie Taggart, then Mario Cristobal, were the first sort of ventures for Oregon into the modern head coach, psyche, in that the modern head coach is more of a recruiter and less of a teacher. And now you've got Dan Lanning recruiting 5-star athletes. I mean, would you trade that if you're an Oregon fan? Be mad at him if you want, but I'm a little confused at all the hostility, because if you look over at Indiana, there's a lot to root against and for with Indiana. I covered the IU program 1998. They were not good. Antoine Randall was the quarterback. Cam Cameron was the coach. It was a program that beat Iowa. That was their big win of that season. They lost to Ohio State. They lost to Michigan. They weren't competitive against the upper echelon of the conference. And certainly this story, if Curt Cignetti wins today, is the greatest sort of resurrection of a college football program, maybe the greatest turnaround of a sports program ever in history. And that's not ignoring the fact that this portal NIL era is a little advantageous if you're trying to do a turnaround. I am interested to see what happens at this game. I'm interested to talk to you a little bit about what I think the keys to the game are. I'm going to give you my ultimate last pick. I haven't really waffled much with this game. I kind of see it how I see it, but I'll give you my last pick here in this broadcast. I would love for you to put in the comment section what your pick for the game is, and make sure you read me at johncanzano.com tonight from Hard Rock Stadium. And if you're watching on the West Coast, this is a nice cushy 4:30 kickoff for you. Here on the East Coast, 7:30. This city behind me has been sort of just ramping up and resting and getting stretched out for the game, so to speak. But the scene at the stadium is kind of cool. I'm going to play this little video here. This is a time lapse from Hard Rock Stadium. And you can see here that they did a completely new playing surface for this game. Keep an eye on that as this game unfolds tonight. We have seen venues undergo sort of this turf replacement before, right? We've seen these venues that have done this for Super Bowls and big games, and it's not unusual here at the Orange Bowl to have a brand new field putting in. You're going to see the paint go on here in a second, but Indiana in one end zone and Miami in the other, although this will be a big time home game for the Hurricanes. But keep an eye on the cleats and the slippage and our players having trouble with the playing surface. Watch for that early in the game, because sometimes you do see that in a game of this magnitude where they replace the playing surface and one team tends to adjust to it, or maybe comes out in the pregame warmups and figures out, oh, we need longer cleats, or we need shorter cleats, or, oh gosh, there's an area of the field here that isn't working for us. Keep an eye on that. I mean, it may be a non-factor. I hope it's a non-factor, but I have seen this kind of thing rear its head in prior years. My photographer, Najee Saker, went over to the stadium yesterday and got into the stadium, took a bunch of photos and sort of was poking around. He's very excited about this championship game and covering it, as am I. But, he told me, like, he just walked into the stadium and he did a little fake it till you make it, right? You're not supposed to be allowed into the stadium. He walked in and kind of looked around and looked at the calm before the storm and, really just sort of struck him that, this is a real home game for Miami. And that walking around this city, like, the stadium holds 65,000. I'm curious to see how many of the 65,000 seats are going to be filled by Hoosiers fans. The get-in price for this game is still pushing $3,000, $4,000 for people who came out and wanted to see a national championship game. I said this yesterday. I'll say it again. Families have been priced out. You couldn't have flown to this game if you had a family of 4, picked up a ticket, stayed in a hotel. I mean, you're taking out a line of credit on your house in order to do that. I do wonder about the future of this event and how much of this event is going to feel corporate, how much of this event is going to be for the partners of the CFP, not necessarily the real fans of the game. My hope is, as there's a lot of talk here in Miami about expansion of the CFP field from 12 teams to 16. Will they go to 16? Will they go to 24? My hope, if they do that, is that the accessibility to the early rounds of the playoffs will not be a problem for fans. Because, I think about kids who are like, if you've got an 8th grade son, for example, who's, a big Duck fan or a big fan of whatever college football team that you root for, you want to be able to take that kid to a playoff game. You want that kid to have access other than just seeing the games on TV. It's part of the charm of college football is that it belongs to fans. It belongs to alumni. When I got to the state of Oregon covering college football in 2002, the very first things I heard were from Beaver fans and Duck fans who said, hey, my grandfather used to take me to games, or my parents used to go to games, and we did a tailgate in the parking lot every weekend, and the teams weren't good, but it was our thing. And so I don't want it to stop being your thing. And yet I say that looking around college football, what's happening? They're renovating stadiums. They're raising ticket prices to help with revenue sharing. There's serious talk at Oregon about what will happen with the next sort of renovation of Autzen Stadium. Rob Mullins, the athletic director there, told me that, he doesn't foresee it being a massive seat increase at Autzen Stadium. There's a real congestion problem around that stadium, but he does look at it and says, hey, look, the premium seating needs to improve. They'll have club seating improvements. They'll have family room suites. They'll have those little mini suites. They'll have loge seating. They're going to do some things that allow them to kind of upsell into their premium seating. Because why? Because they want more money. They're seeking new revenue. Another little tidbit that has come out of here in Miami that, I've talked to some people about jersey patches, right? Huge controversy, a boiling issue for these schools. We've seen these schools monetize every bit of real estate at the stadium. You go to Autzen Stadium and you look out onto the field, or you go to Research Stadium, look out on the field, you're going to see new logos, corporate sponsors, anywhere that you go. You go into Pullman, you go into Seattle, you're down in San Diego at Snapdragon Stadium. You're going to see all of these different logos and things that these schools are using to monetize extra money, right? They all want new revenue. But the area that athletic directors really were focused on in the last month was putting patches of new corporate sponsors on the jerseys, kind of like what you see in soccer across the globe, right? They're going, hey, there's money there. There's some pushback, however, from Nike on this front. Nike right now is one of the sponsors, partners with many of these universities. Adidas and Nike sort of fighting over most of them. Under Armour came in there for a bit. But, Adidas has both teams in this game. Adidas has been very quiet about whether or not it would allow other companies to come in and put their logos on the team jerseys. Adidas kind of waiting and seeing. Nike is pushing back. And it's partly why this decision was not made. It was supposed to be made a couple of weeks ago, as some of the executive councils were talking, the Division I committees were talking about, okay, jersey patches. They made no recommendation. And part of that is, I believe they are afraid to tick off Nike. And so Adidas, I think, could slide in here and do something that puts a lot of pressure on Nike. They could slide in and just tell their partners, hey, have at it. Put another logo on there. Just don't overshadow our logo. We're good with it. And if that happens, I think it will put a tremendous amount of pressure on Nike and the Nike schools to follow suit. I am also told by some ADs that some of these schools that are Nike partners are kind of taking the approach of, let's not ask permission. Let's just kind of move forward with this, and then we can apologize later. You ever do that? You ever do that in a situation where you're going, hey, if I ask permission for this, I'm probably going to get shot down. But if I just do it, I can always come back and apologize later. Keep an eye on jersey patches from corporate sponsors starting to get more placement on these jerseys of some of these teams around the country. All right, that said, let's focus on the game tonight. Two teams playing, two Adidas schools playing in this game. I've written about that. I interviewed the Adidas president on this YouTube channel. Really interesting interview, getting kind of a glimpse into the world of Adidas. John Miller gave me some of his time. I encourage you to check out that video if you have a few minutes after this one. But, look, this is a big moment for Miami. Mario Cristobal came back to his alma mater with the idea of recruiting local kids because you have enough population in the Miami area. You've got great athletes. They historically have recruited great athletes. Heck, look over at Christopher Columbus High School right here in Miami. Mario Cristobal and his older brother both played locally and then went on to star at Miami. But Cristobal talked a little bit about this at the news conference a couple of days ago. He talked about the balance of recruiting through the portal and also recruiting some local kids.
Athletes, especially locally as well. I mean, it's always at the core of your program, right? You like to have people come in when they're just starting to learn and understand what it is to play at the college level and become a student athlete at the collegiate level as well. And I think the best part about what college football is now, with all the things we have to fix, is the fact that they're introduced to a very diverse locker room, right? And if you look at Miami and the city and our program and all floors, right? Coaches are, development staff, academics. We come in every size, shape, skin color, ethnicity, speak just about every single language, and it's awesome. And when your local guys become prominent players, it really galvanizes the community. But I think what's also helped us continue to elevate is the fact that we're very national. And we've come from all over, and here people are accepted and people are driven, and if they love to work hard, if they are high achieving mentalities, if they care about doing things the right way and push themselves in the classroom and on the field, then they're going to get along great. And that's what I think we're starting to see a lot more of, and that was the initial challenge to get us going and thinking in that direction. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I hope that kind of encompasses a little bit about the local plus the out-of-state guys.
Yeah, Mario Cristobal kind of playing both sides of the fence there, being like, yeah, we love to go with local guys. Why? Because that brings your community in, and those are glue players for your program, but also saying, yeah, we're not going to stop getting into the portal and trying to do business there. It's interesting to kind of look at these two programs because I have felt for a while like Cristobal knocked on the door last year. I thought his team was really good last year and then broke through a little bit late this year, right? They had some setbacks. They lost to Louisville in a game that was really puzzling. They lost to SMU in a game they probably should have won. They've had some moments where they just didn't play their best football, and some of that is on Carson Beck, their quarterback. He needs to be good in this game, and you know that part of Indiana's focus is going to be to try to make him uncomfortable and disrupt him in the same way that they disrupted Dante Moore in the quarterfinal game. They're going to try to make Carson Beck uncomfortable. It's interesting to me to kind of look at Beck. He's a he's a grown-up who has played in 2 prior national championship games and won. So I do wonder about that experience factor for Miami at that position, even though Fernando Mendoza on the other side at Indiana is the better player, more consistent player. I trust him way more. I think there is a little bit of Beck has been on this stage. I don't think he'll be rattled by it, but let's see how that plays out, because you know damn well that what Indiana is going to try to do is they're going to disrupt him. They're going to try to make him uncomfortable. And what Miami's going to try to do, I expect Mario Cristobal to run, try to shorten this game, try to win the line of scrimmage, try to make it a tug of war. He has to be looking at the film of the Big Ten championship game where Ohio State and Indiana played a 13-10 game, and he has to be thinking, oh, that's the kind of game I want to get in. Anybody who saw Oregon and Mario Cristobal in the Red Box Bowl, 7-6 game. Mario Cristobal loved coaching in that kind of game, loves to play in that kind of game. He does not want to try to beat you 35-21. He wants to win 23-20, 20-17. He's an offensive lineman. It's his psyche. If we're doing an FBI profiling episode here on Mario Cristobal, we know that guy wants to get you in a headlock. He wants to try to choke you out. That's the way he wants to win games. He doesn't want to necessarily beat you with a bunch of fireworks. We saw it with Justin Herbert. Meanwhile, you got Curt Cignetti on the other side. Such a good story and a lot of fun to talk about Cignetti and sort of the path that he has. He was, I thought, amusing and entertaining at the news conference earlier this week. I want to play this clip for you.
It is a close team, and I've witnessed quite a bit of sentimentalism throughout the week from some of our seniors who we've been with quite a long time. I think it's time to sharpen the saw now, throw those warm fuzzies out the door, that sentimentalism. It's time to go play a game against a great opponent. We got to have a sharp edge going into this game. And, you don't go to war with warm milk and cookies.
You don't go to war with warm milk and cookies. You're going to hear that during the broadcast tonight. Also, another funny moment. I played this yesterday, but I'm playing it again. You got Mario Cristobal and you got Curt Cignetti both being asked by a reporter, what would it mean for your program to win a national championship? And Cignetti went first.
It'd mean we're the national champion.
Coach Cristobal.
It would mean we're the national champions.
We're going to take our next question over on the right.
There it is. We're national champions. They are national champions. Look, the secret sauce for Indiana, I want to talk about the defensive coordinator, Bryant Haynes. You're going to hear about him on the broadcast tonight. It's an interesting story. Bryant Haynes calls the defense for Indiana. That defense has been why they are in this game. Curt Cignetti gets a lot of credit. He is the GM. He does not have a GM. He is the coach. He sets the tone. He sets the culture. He brought the players from JMU. The guy can flat out coach. Reminds me a little bit of Hannibal Lecter, right? His pulse never goes above 80 while he's doing his thing. But he's got this D coordinator in Bryant Haynes who is making $3 million a year. That is a high-paid, highly compensated defensive coordinator that people aren't really talking about. And I expect him to eventually be, maybe he's the succession plan at Indiana, sort of a Morgan Scalley situation like at Utah. But is it possible that this D coordinator is the succession plan after Curt Cignetti, 64-year-old head coach? Keep an eye on that. You're also going to hear a lot of chatter about whether or not Sig is bound for an NFL job. I'm sure that's going to come out of this game if Indiana wins this game. I don't think Mario Cristobal is a candidate to coach in the NFL. I don't think his style would work there. I don't think he wants to do it. I think he's very happy being here in Miami, coaching at his alma mater. His two sons, by the way, back playing football at his alma mater high school, Christopher Columbus High School. So he's got his kids, Rocco and Mateo, still coming through high school. And I think he's real happy being here in this area where, his brother is a sergeant in the Miami Police Department and his mother and father have both passed away, but certainly the Cuban influence in this region has to feel really familiar and comfortable to Mario Cristobal. I expect Cristobal to stay here as long as they'll have him or as long as he wants to be here in Miami. So I don't think he's really a flight risk. But when I look at these two programs, I do think there's more of an urgency for Indiana to win this game because of that, because you don't really know after Cignetti, 64 years old, everybody trying to copy your formula next year. You don't really know how many opportunities you get to be here. Do you have another Fernando Mendoza? This team is rife with 4-year players, 4 and 5-year players who have started among the starters at Indiana, 4.3 years of experience, average experience among the starters. So you're talking about a senior who's had a redshirt year at most positions, your average player. At Miami, it's 4.1 years. So I do find it interesting that both of these teams are old and deep and experienced. My pick for this game, even though it's an 8.5-point spread, I do think America is overvaluing the Hoosiers a little bit based on the Oregon victory, based on the Alabama victory. I think there's a little bit of fool's gold in that. Don't get me wrong. I'm picking Indiana to win the game, but I think these two teams are closer than the sports book has it, right? And I think there's a little bit of hype and hysteria around Indiana. Unless the Hoosiers can come up with a special team score, or maybe a defensive score the way they did against Oregon. They can steal 7 points. I think this is a one-score game. I think Miami's going to have the ball late with a puncher's chance to win. I think it has a real chance to be something like 10-10 at halftime. I think it's going to be really close to the vest, very conservative. I think these two teams are going to bloody each other up, and there's going to be a lot of collisions at the point of attack. I think Mario Cristobal, this is the kind of game he wants to be in. I think Curt Cignetti will be happy to play that game because I think he believes over time his team is just a little better and a little deeper, and I think they win the game because of that. But I have it like 23-17. I think it's that kind of game here in Miami. You tell me in the comment section how you see it. Before I let you go, I want to give you a little shot of the walk up to the stadium. If you were attending this game, you'll see it. But make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you read me today at johncanzano.com. I'll continue to post these videos on YouTube. Also, grab the podcast of this if you are interested in the audio podcast of The Bald-Faced Truth on Apple, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get a podcast. That's where you can find it. But I'll leave you here with a little shot of the walk up to the stadium. Hard Rock Stadium tonight, 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern time. Who you got? You tell me in the comment section. Thanks for watching.